Many thanks for choosing us this afternoon. Scores of residents of GOMOA Fetteh within the GOMOA East District of the Central Region are scrambling for food and other essentials after traditional authorities ordered a ban on commercial activities in the area. The ban, which is to last 4 days, beginning Thursday, October 14, is to allow for the conduct of the funeral rite of the late chief of the town, Nana Abo Iyamoa II. Trading activities are grounded as all shops in the markets remain locked. Let's take you live to GOMOA Fetteh. In fact, my colleague Manuel Kranting has been there and he's been interacting with members of the community. Manuel, if you can hear me, how serious is the situation at hand?
Well, so Aisha, I'm currently standing at the Budumburam market. Well, this place on a typical Friday would have been basking with commercial activities, with traders and of course patrons alike coming in here to ply of course their activities. Indeed, today the picture is absolutely different. Behind me you could see a number of shops that are currently under lock and key. Indeed, this is the result and implication of that order from the GOMOA Traditional Council for all commercial activities to be suspended starting yesterday, October 14. Now, what is the effect of that particular order? As the shops are currently locked, the residents over here are now faced with the problem of finding alternative sources of food and other essentials. Now, the Budumburam community, of course, where you have the Liberia camp, is typically a touch-and-go community where you'd have people ordinarily going out in the mornings to buy food and then continuing their activities throughout the day and repeating that cycle. But because of the ban, the people are unable to find the various spots that they are able to, buy food and so on and so forth. Because, of course, they could not stock up because of the way the community in itself has been structured. We know from the GOMOA Traditional Council that there had been a prior notice that was given to the community members to stock up ahead of this particular ban. But as I just explained, that was close to impossible because, indeed, the structuring of the community would not allow for that. Now, in the past couple of hours since we got here, we've been able to speak to the Traditional Council. I must make reference to the Secretary of the Traditional Council, Nana Kwesi Dodu, who spoke to us and said that, well, based on the reports that we've been giving in the past couple of hours on the current situation of the residents here, they've had to review that particular ban and then capture what they call exempt activities. Exempt activities would typically include the sale of food, the sale of drugs at pharmacies, and so on and so forth. But that message doesn't seem to have gone down, and if you like, saturated within the communities affected. I'm talking about Budumburam, Kakraba, GOMOA Fetteh, and the adjoining communities. Well, I just move across this stretch where I see a number of taxi drivers who indeed have been here for the past 5 hours that I've been in this particular community, have been here, and they say that business is really slow because there's not so much commercial activities and there's not so much movement even within the community. And so having parked here, they have been essentially grounded. Let me just speak to them briefly. Let me cross over through this particular point and then speak to them briefly about their situation since that ban was effected yesterday. Grateful that you could speak to us on JoyNews. Say, my patriot was saying that show me camera on me. You say, I'm a ban commercial activities. I just say, me and Tonton, I didn't say shops in a closely. How is it affecting you?
Oh, lockdown now, Banadia, a higher power because if it's Andrea say, and so cry, you be a and talk around the Yano, Adrian Obedi, just a call the next town, and I say, Bibisa. And the affected any person who come on by the Umberfoka. And the Ajan, the mid say me put to Ponaso, and I'm an unti my bedroom. I say me me put to po because the human is a qua, again, I and the names are over to bear few cars. Now, so I'm conti, ye na is here, will be crowned up with tobacco pet. Sat as in lockdown or Modiabane, Adriana Tisana making, Adriana crying ye bindi, into a higher power.
And so you're hearing him say in Chi that indeed for some of them who are the taxi drivers here, their businesses have been essentially grounded. There's not so much activity, just indicating to you the effect, if you like, impact of that ban. My boss, say you say a catcher mo say you babe banning and I say mama lockdown kakabe 4 days. Intino na almost say mo ambe she says and be lockdown ne ba and I say ban mo kan wasem ne ba me to me at church mo munyama.
Any the omo kan every day omo ya announcement. But omo kakura and she say be na e betumi aya for adwuma because I hire na adwuma ba sa no obi an pie nko ba bia ma market for no mo ya adwuma obi abeto ade fa me dropping coffee na market fit and right na market no onipa ba akokora no wa bebie wa be so beto ntos and abeto jindi and abeto e fa market no mo ha ehwe obi a ni table obutubutu no so so high na ni na omatutu the activities there enkoso the whole day we be music 20 cedis and po me lodu ko kaso ba me ko na me samba e je ha ko ni say de gugu e say etem akope Monday na eja e be ya ko yetumi aye because of yan here we wo GOMOA Fetteh enti na ma aba so mo ye yi enti na ma mo this lockdown we aba.
And so he's been making reference to what they as residents and indeed folks who work within the area can do for themselves. He says that they're really hands tied because there's not so much available to them to explore, because when the order came through to them, it gave indications of some semblance of unison at the helm of affairs within the area. And we've heard the secretary of the GOMOA Traditional Council make reference to a notification to the Divisional Police Command and indeed the district chief executive, like the district assembly. So all of these authorities seem to have already been notified ahead of the ban. And so that leaves them with very little options. Let me speak to this man, finally, before I move to this other side, to speak to some of the women who I see now beginning to parade their wares. I see bottles of drinks and so on. We'll get to speak to them pretty shortly. My boss, so Sisiano, trouble now, Abano, Sisiam, Wanka, more person, now, with me. I fend for myself. Send I'm moving to survive.
Oh, send I be surviving. At least I'm humble. Until no can you be here? You be here until you show more.
Until I could see Sunday, and Monday, and Opano.
Oh, yeah, okay. I'll say this. You be here. Yeah.
When Lucy sales, Nibi.
Sales in the Lucy. You can say Lucy, boy, you lose one cassa. Yeah, sure. All right.
And you have this man quite speaking quite agreeably, saying that, well, even though they are left with not so many options, they are content with the situation because indeed this is a cultural, if you like, a traditional ritual that's being carried out. But like I just said to you, behind me now, you're seeing a bit of, commercial activities centered on food. I see, a mini truck with some pastries on it, and then bottles of fizzy drinks also. We just cross the road to the other side and then speak to them and find out how they have come to the market and where they got the authorization to actually come to the market. And so this is indeed an extension of the market from where we started talking to you just the past couple of minutes now. And generally, the entire market seems to have died down, except for this little stretch where we're seeing a bit of activities. My boss, good afternoon. Grateful that you could speak to us. We are live on the JoyNews channel. Speak to me. You heard of this ban on commercial activities within the neighborhood, correct?
Minim bibisa no ba. I didn't say a lockdown be Uber marketer who we aduane a to bibia mo close bibia to say lockdown ni mu ntino sana me hu no
ntino mo ofie na mo ye den na mo survive
sana yete ye ne yeto food stamp kakra edugu fie Edugu no.
See, I staff na sana.
Asa ntem abeto meat pie. Mabeto meat pie me kodi.
The meat pie no be depending on until Sunday.
Some abeto brodo. Na me dey no drink.
Okay. And so he's just telling me that they got wind of the notice, but they stocked up a bit, but they actually ran out of the food, and so that's why he's come here to buy a meat pie. He says he's going to survive on that. If that finishes, he's going to now come back and buy bread. Let me talk to the lady who sells the meat pie herself. Madam, good afternoon. Me also wash drawer hana. Me also more other shops in na. Omni na oma close. You know saying?
Pacho, see one more muton eduane no. One more pen a bit me. One more muton eduane. One more pen a bit me aba. Now one more muton. Another thing the omunti me ma.
If it's running now, be amai.
Pacho, if it's running now, be ama.
I said you ready for no a band sabana. Niamana muton and one more the shamun kofana.
One man so be a kitaba. Obi akita nkwala ofie nso aba na sanu nso obi na mamra so de waka nti wuntimi enye eyintia yeso aduane na yetonti na yetima aba na nka yeso yenyina obi amma mise mekita nkwala tu se de meka na mekita nkwala tu mama papa ni ho single mother onu na me de show mu school brofa
intino mo bae no nyama no ko nyama na moton ne ko
yesin so betina fie obi wo hono ma wo hyede mo ntimi meton ade nso akom de na de abi ne nko ade obaye den oba beto di.
So she's been saying and making reference to her other colleagues within the market who really have shut down their shops. I'll end with this lady who sells these bottles of fizzy drinks. Madam, also what's the show on your man? What shop no way to
me shop no ho. Andra na eja mo buy some amara bi wa into my market eja me temi me kunafo me get ankola 5 sama amba nso a nya bi nhwa nkora we mu one nso wo se camp my 2 months yentu sama amba me nyeska e high dan into eja na me buy
o buy nko for ton yama no
aye be ndan e yesin wet na fie nti kaka nkora be ye omo ba nso mo high nso de ne din na e de ye because ya mba enya bindi ya mba nso kwa so ye nhwe no
asafo boys no ba ebe sesa ne ma na omkofo me bi show
omo ba endra se bi mbo ba se ma ne drink se man fa ma na nya ma ba isa eja me kita nkwara nti no me de ma no na eja ma me tina me ton ade.
I see. And so you heard her make reference to the reason she has come to parade her wares here. She says she has no option. She's a single mother and has kids to take care of. And so that's why she's come to the market.
Now,
she makes reference to the traditional warriors who have been taxed to, as it were, enforce.
Certainly, this is something that is uncomfortable for the people in the area. You spoke with the MCE earlier. What has he been telling you?
Well, he says he's not available to make a definitive comment just yet because at the time that engagements were going on about this particular arrangement, he says that the president's nomination had just come in and were quite busy with those details. For now, he says that he's going to engage the traditional authorities to find a way of solving the problem. Even ahead of that particular engagement, Aisha, we can confirm to you at this point that our interview with the secretary of the traditional council here in GOMOA unearthed a solution, which is an exemption for traders who sell food and other essential items, and reference is made prominently to medical items in pharmacies, in herbal shops, and so on and so forth. So for these essential services, they are exempted. But the other works, if you like, other non-essential service providers are expected to have their shops closed up until Sunday night, when the 4-day burial rites of the late Nana Abo Yamwa II would be rounded up and brought to a conclusion, Aisha.
Manuel Kranting is our man at GOMOA Fetteh. He's been bringing us sights and sounds from the people in that community, telling us how they're planning to survive for the next 4 days as they await the funeral rites of their chief.